Welcome, VFit family and friends. We got a full house tonight. We'll get this recorded and out to anyone who can't make it here live. But been loving doing this monthly workshop series and mixing it up. And my favorite part of what we've started offering with our monthly workshop is we've had incredible members step forward that have areas of expertise that are also in line with our VFit values and depth, and where we're taking this team and have stepped forward to help us lead and share on these great topics. And so when Ellen and we're going to be working with Ellen tonight over from the Bay Area of California. She's a functional nutritionist. Lots of accolades behind her name, loves animals. She's been a pole dancer. It's so fun to get to learn about everyone. Ellen's been a VFitter for 5 years, right? Over 5 years now. And so she definitely knows this team. She loves nothing more than high intensity cardio. But no, Ellen is a wealth of knowledge. I'm kidding with that. She's grown, but Ellen loves her strength. She's got it all. You'll hear she's got a great, well-rounded approach to health and fitness, especially going into menopause and beyond, because where you're going is where you can lead people. And so as we go through different phases of our lives as health professionals, we're also growing and learning and evolving, and nothing gets you there than going through it yourself. And so I'm so excited for tonight's topic. We were collaborating on what for her to share. And when she brought up this topic, I was like, yes, we all are interested in this. I encourage everyone, I'll send out the recording and a link to sign up for her email list. Ellen puts out a really well put together email. They come with good quality topics about different supplements. You can schedule an appointment or one-on-one with her, or just soak in tonight. Again, we're not here to hard sell anyone anything. We're here to share, but I do believe if you want to build deeper relationships and get more knowledge, I can definitely vouch behind our team. And so she's got a great email newsletter that she puts out with great information. So I am on it, and I would encourage you to follow her. And without further ado, we're getting super fancy. She's literally in her slideshow. All right. Here's this beauty inside and out from San Jose, California. Take it over, my friend.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you so much. Let me make sure. I just realized my computer loves to pick the wrong microphone. There we go. So hopefully I sound clear. I'm really happy to be here talking with you all today. This is super weird. I'm also flipped so it doesn't even look like me. But anyway, we'll make this work. When Rochelle and I were talking about what to come in and talk to you about, I knew that it was like an immediate idea, because these are the three things that in the 10 years that I've been in private practice, practically everybody comes in the door complaining of. They may have other things that they're complaining about too, but bloating, brain fog, and fatigue are the three things that I hear over and over and over again when I'm doing discovery calls with clients and going through people's paperwork. So, most people really come to us with at least one of these issues, but then when we start digging a little bit, we usually figure out the other ones are there too. So today what I really wanted to talk about is why that's not a coincidence, and why for many people, this really can be traced back to gut health, and why supporting gut health can make such a difference in improving all three of these things at once. So let's see, that doesn't change the slide, does it? Oh, that is so annoying. Oh, wait, look, there's a button. Oh, they're so smart at the Zoom people are. I get this weird sun thing in the afternoon too, so sorry about all that. But so yeah, Rochelle told you really everything that there is to know about me in a lot of ways, but I am a board certified holistic nutritionist. I'm functionally trained, and so anytime you hear someone say that they're a functional provider, that really just means that we're trained to do the digging, to figure out the root causes as to why things have gone wrong, and use a lot of lab testing for that. My team and I have two other nutritionists who work with me. We work with clients all over the world. This is my website, abalancedtable.net, and I'll give it to you again at the end as well. I am in San Jose, California, so a few hours away from Rochelle, but near where she grew up. As she said, I love animals and gardening and the outdoors, and I've been a pole dance instructor for a very, very long time. And I do hate cardio. That is a fact. That is a fact. Okay, so why do we think that these symptoms travel together? Why am I always seeing these coming together? A lot of people think about them as separate problems, but they're really not. We'll talk about folks like to give digestive fixes for bloating, and they'll use herbs or amino acid supplements for brain fog, and for fatigue, people turn to caffeine or adrenal supports. But clinically, these things show up together again and again because they are often driven by shared root causes, especially coming from the gut. And so today we're going to connect the dots and talk about what's actually driving them. The gut is a control center of the body, and probably everybody knows this by now, but it's often called the second brain, and the gut is constantly communicating with your brain as well as your muscles and your liver and your immune system, and it plays really key roles in things like energy production and brain signaling. Hormone and toxin clearance is a big role of the gut, and even regulating the immune system. When it's healthy, we find that people tend to feel clear and energized and resilient. And when it's struggling, symptoms will start to show up for people, but far beyond the classic digestive symptoms. So it's really very common in my practice to see people who don't report any digestive difficulty, but still have a whole lot of imbalance going on in the gut. So instead of talking about bloating, brain fog, and fatigue one by one, what we're going to do is walk through the major gut-related drivers that really explain why they often coexist. And so those four key drivers that I'm going to talk briefly about are microbiome balance, something called dysbiosis and yeast overgrowth, something else called short-chain fatty acids, and the idea of bile flow and detox. I have to keep changing your slide and then changing my slide, so that's the pause. So the microbiome, that just refers to the community of microbes that live in your gut. So that's in the large intestine and the small intestine, and even in the stomach itself. The stomach has its own microbiome. I like to think about the microbiome as a garden full of beautiful flowers, where we don't want to see weeds growing. We only want to see really nice flowers. And a diverse, well-fed microbiome, or a flourishing garden, helps us extract energy from our food through digestion. It helps keep inflammation in check, and it even influences mood and focus by communicating with the brain. When diversity drops, so when we don't have a wide variety of flowers, the system starts to become fragile and symptoms can quickly follow. So this one root, the microbiome, can lead to our three symptoms that we're talking about here today. We can get bloating when there's a poor balance of those microbes and they're struggling to properly ferment the carbs that we eat, which can lead to gas production. We can get brain fog when the inflammatory chemicals that are released by out of balance microbes start to affect our neurotransmitter production. And then we can get fatigue when the microbiome can just no longer do a really good job of extracting energy from the food that we eat. So this is why people can be really eating well and training consistently and sleeping and doing all of those things and still feel off. If the microbiome aren't well fed or diverse, the body can't really fully benefit from all those awesome efforts that you're making in all those other places. And clinically, I can tell you that in our practice, what we very often see is a fear of eating carbs, which leads to fiber avoidance, which leads to making all these symptoms worse because these beautiful flowers in your garden need fiber in order to thrive. Eat carbs, they're good for you. Okay, so the next thing is this idea of dysbiosis. And When the microbiome loses balance, dysbiosis is often what fills the gap. Dysbiosis just means imbalance. The weeds are now running rampant. They're taking over the garden, basically. We have an imbalance in the microbes in the gut. And when we get overgrowth in these inflammatory, often inflammatory organisms in the gut, they create gas and toxic byproducts. I always like to say they're living creatures, so they go to the bathroom too. And the products that come out of them can really affect us negatively. Yeast, in particular, is one organism that we often see really taking advantage in people who are stressed, who are having a lot of swings of blood sugar, and whose digestion isn't moving beautifully. And yeast is really classic for producing those byproducts, those toxins that come out that will increase bloating, disrupt brain clarity, and drain energy reserves by taxing the immune system. You know, the immune system has to work really hard to try to deal with that. This is one key reason why we often see people who will feel worse when they bring in probiotics, or when they bring in fermented foods, which are supposed to be so healthy for the gut and can be. These tools aren't bad. It's just that they're being used at the wrong time in the presence of a dysbiosis or a yeast overgrowth, and frequently will make symptoms worse for people. Okay, so the next root cause is something called short chain fatty acids. And these are really one of the biggest links between the gut and the brain and energy levels. Short chain fatty acids are produced when those microbes in your gut ferment the fiber that you eat. And what the short chain fatty acids actually do is feed your gut lining and keep it healthy. They calm inflammation in the gut, and they also are known to support brain signaling and enhance energy production. So this is another really key reason why we need to be eating fiber, lots and lots of plants, because your microbes need them in order to be able to make these really important short chain fatty acids, including one you might have heard of called butyrate, which is a really important one for the lining of the gut. When people are low in short chain fatty acids, the gut lining really starts to become compromised. And a weak gut lining will lead to poor digestion and bloating, and very commonly an increase in food sensitivity. So this is when you've been eating tomatoes your whole life and all of a sudden you hit 50 and you can't eat tomatoes without getting horrible digestive symptoms. Your gut lining is probably really compromised at that point. Having a lack of short chain fatty acids also will lead to inflammation and poor signaling, and so that's going to lead to brain fog. And then it also means that the gut just really isn't going to be able to produce energy efficiently, and so that is certainly going to lead to fatigue. This is one of the reasons why we see really extreme restriction diets like strict keto can very often backfire, because when you're eating keto, you're not eating plants, you're not eating fiber, and you're not feeding your gut microbiome. There are great studies that show that within just a couple of weeks of eating a keto diet, the changes to the gut microbiome are dramatic and not for the better. And so that means that things like short chain fatty acid production will drop. And that is why people will often ultimately feel worse, not better, even though there might be other benefits of being on something like a keto diet. The last one here is bile. So bile is really the missing link that no one talks about. It's essential not just for digestion, but it's also really critical for microbial balance as well as detox. Bile's main role is to digest fats. Your liver makes it, it puts it into your gallbladder, and your gallbladder squirts it out into your intestine to digest fat when you eat it. But bile also has a lot of really important signaling roles, and it controls microbial balance in the gut, as well as being the physical river that the body uses to clear out things like excess hormones and toxins and get them into your stool. So how it relates to our three symptoms that we're talking about here? Well, bloating, very common when someone is intolerant of fat and just not digesting fat really well. You'll commonly get lower GI symptoms from that too, but bloating can be a piece of it. brain fog, if the bile movement isn't happening the way it's supposed to, you can get things like toxins and excess hormones starting to recirculate instead of exiting the way they're supposed to. And that can absolutely lead to brain fog. And fatigue, if you're just not able to break down fat and use it to make energy to feed your mitochondria, you're going to be tired for sure. And you're probably going to develop some hormonal issues behind that as well. So obvious signs of people potentially having a bile issue would be something like having a lot of loose stools, although sometimes constipation can be a result of that as well. Classically greasy stool, or being very nauseated after you eat something that's heavy in fat. And definitely not having a gallbladder. Anybody not have a gallbladder? Very, very common. Yeah, Julie, I see you waving. Yeah, very, very common in women. They have this horrible, horrible thing that they say in the emergency room of female fertile fat and 40. Those are the people who they like to pull gallbladders out of, right? And so there's a lot of women running around out there without gallbladders and not digesting their fat appropriately and having a lot of these downstream effects as well. Poor bile flow or bile flow issues in general, incredibly common and very rarely discussed, honestly. But when bile is a problem or sluggish, everything upstream and downstream really does start to suffer. So let's talk now about what we can do to support these 4 key root cause areas and help lower the symptom load in people who are dealing with bloating, brain fog, and fatigue. Well, this is one place where fitness really shines, right? So regular movement directly supports gut health. I don't know, you might have heard it said, if you don't move your body, you can't move your bowels, right? So there's a very, very clear connection there. But exercise helps things move. It stimulates your bile flow, but it also improves your microbial balance when you're exercising in a way that matches your own personal capacity, right? So exercise is very powerful, but we all know too much intensity without recovery is a problem in a lot of different ways, and it can actually increase dysbiosis and certainly can increase fatigue. Consistent exercise is way better than extreme exercise, and overtraining can absolutely worsen all of these symptoms that we're talking about here today. So we always want to make sure, as Rochelle and the whole team tells us, we want to be moving in a way that's going to build our resilience, not in a way that drains it. But I think it's really interesting to think about how exercise can be helpful, but can also be something that's really putting stress on the body that might not be ready for it. So as for food, I tend to find that most people don't need more restriction. They need better support in terms of they need to be giving their body more of what it actually needs. And fueling the body appropriately is what makes exercise and digestion and recovery and all those things really work together. Under eating can be a very big driver of all 3 of the symptoms we talked about here today. I mean, fatigue, you might get why that would be instinctively, but brain fog and bloating can also happen with under eating. So making sure that when people are eating good balanced meals throughout the day and not skipping meals, that is not a great way to get yourself out of a brain fog and fatigue situation. You want to be sure that you're also eating a really diverse array of fiber, that you're eating adequate carbs to be sure that you're feeding your microbes, and also that you're eating a good amount of healthy fat to help stimulate bile movement. And on my next slide, I'll talk to you more about what some of these things are. But from a lifestyle standpoint, also, in addition to movement, we have to sleep, right? We've got to get good sleep because that is when our gut repair happens. And it is when the liver makes your bile that you end up in your gallbladder having. So sleep and all of the restoration that happens at night is just so incredibly critical, as is regulating stress. Stress is such a key driver of gut microbial imbalance. And it is truly, in my practice, and I think all of my colleagues would say the same, stress can be the deal breaker. It doesn't matter what you eat, it doesn't matter what supplements you take, it doesn't, you can do all the things I tell you. And if we can't get stress under control, that really can be the thing that can prevent so many of the things that we're working on from moving in the right direction. I wanted to talk about some of my favorite foods for gut health because everybody always wants to know, but what do I eat? What do I eat? What do I eat? Um, let's see. Come on, Zoom. There we go. All right. So obviously, I've said it here already, carbs, but I don't mean Ritz crackers, right? I mean colorful, whole food carbohydrates, vegetables, fruits, a whole diversity of plants. These are really what feed your gut microbes. And interestingly, diversity matters more than perfection because different plants feed different microbes. So you can't just eat like 3 pounds of broccoli a day and only think that that's all your microbes need. We need to get a full range of all the different types of carbs in there to build that diversity, which is what really builds the resilience in the gut. Among carbs, some of my absolute favorite carbs are starchy carbs, whole starchy carbs, sweet potatoes, butternut squash, brown rice, things like that. These are things that root vegetables, turnips and beets and those types of things. These things really help support training, recovery, hormone balance, giving you good long burning forms of energy that let you drive your digestion and have steady energy and also help drive gut repair. I cannot count how many times I have had to tell somebody, just go eat a sweet potato. Please stop being afraid of carbohydrates. You need this, particularly when you're somebody who's training a lot. Specific foods that can line the gut, you might have heard the term resistant starch before. That really helps fuel the gut lining. We want that gut lining to be really well nourished so it can be strong and do its job and keep inflammation down and promote good immune function and keep energy up. So resistant starch, you can look it up online. There's different types of resistant starch, but it's sort of my favorite ones that I think feel most accessible for people are oats, but certainly in like their whole grain, slow cooking form, not instant oats, which also tend to have a lot of sugar in them. Legumes, things like lentils, fantastic for the gut, chickpeas. And then cooked and cooled starches. A lot of people don't know that if you take something like a white potato or white rice, you cook it, and then you cool it down, refrigerate it, then you can reheat it and eat it as a leftover. And the profile of starch in the food has actually changed. And it is no longer the type of starch that's just going to spike your blood sugar dramatically. It's now that really slow burning resistant starch that's so incredibly good for the gut. Some of my favorite bile supportive foods, these are just some of my favorite foods. Bitter greens and leafy dark greens, these are things that really help stimulate bile flow. So things like arugula, dandelion root, or dandelion leaves, if you've ever had them, they're like really, really bitter. You can make salads or you can cook them. Beets do the same thing. Lemon, one of my absolute favorite juices to make is like beets and lemon juice and maybe a carrot and a little bit of apple. So good for getting, and those beet greens, get them in there too. So good for getting all the bile moving. That means better fat digestion, better microbial balance, and just better detoxification. Fats, healthy fats. These aren't just calories. Fats actually signal digestive juices to do their job. They support the movement of bile. When people are fat phobic, bile gets very sludgy because you're not asking it to be released and it gets kind of gummy in the gallbladder, basically. And they also, some of these healthy fats actually feed some of the really beneficial microbes in the gut. Favorite ones, olive oil, avocados and avocado oil, all the nuts, all the seeds, and actually butter. Butter is a saturated fat, but butter is very high in something called butyrate, which you might remember I said earlier is a short chain fatty acid. So butter, not your only fat, but in balance with other fats, quite good for the gut. And you can't forget hydration. I mean, water helps everything move, right? Digestion, bile, waste products. You need it to make energy in your body. So underhydration is definitely something we see a lot when people are filling out paperwork for us. And electrolytes, I don't necessarily think that everybody on the planet needs to be pounding electrolytes all day long, but particularly when you have really active people, we can start to get some of these mineral imbalances, and a well-balanced sort of low-level electrolyte can be very helpful in water, not one of these that's like 1,000 milligrams of sodium and almost nothing else, right? But, really reading the labels and making sure that you're looking at an electrolyte that's balanced and isn't also full of a bunch of colors and flavors and garbage and all that other type of stuff that they like to put in there. So really, there is no single perfect gut food. What really matters is fueling consistently, eating a variety, and supporting digestion alongside movement. Okay, home stretch here. I did want to just say, what about when it isn't the gut, right? The gut is often the hub, but it's not the only player in bloating, brain fog, and fatigue, what we're here talking about today. So all of these systems interact, and sometimes we really do need to look beyond digestion. Thyroid can be a big one with those three symptoms that we're specifically talking about. Thyroid labs are probably the biggest crime in medicine as far as I'm concerned, and my dad's a doctor. I love doctors, but they just don't really read thyroid labs very well, and they don't run all the right markers. So there's a lot of people running around out there with imbalanced thyroids, but blood sugar, hormones, nutrient deficiencies, and just chronic infections and inflammation, these all can certainly be a big part of what could be behind these symptoms. So functional testing, how is this something that can help? Well, when we do functional testing, we're taking the guessing out. We're not trying random supplements. We're not doing trial and error. We can figure out what's actually driving symptoms for an individual person. And we can look at the microbial balance. We can look for dysbiosis. We can look at short chain fatty acids and bile and inflammation, and we can really see what's going on. Not everyone needs everything. Right? So by figuring out what's causing your symptoms, we can avoid random supplements and over restriction and just all that trial and error sort of fatigue. So, the big takeaway really is these things are connected. They're also very fixable. They're probably some of the first things that we move the needle on when we work with people. They are often rooted in the gut, and, the body isn't broken, it's communicating. And when we can figure out why it's doing that and what do we need to do to support the body intelligently without getting extreme, we can often make people feel much better across the board and not just in one symptom. So I'm certainly happy to answer all the questions that anybody might have about any of this, but if you do want to dive deeper, if you just want to talk to me, if you have questions about anything I said today, if you just want to know more, my website is on here. It's abalancedtable.net. You are welcome to email me. It's ellen@abalancedtable.net. And if you were to decide that you wanted to go down the road and start doing some real deeper functional work, we're of course going to offer a discount for our VFit family. And that's what I had to say.
I knew it was going to be good, but that was, can we give it, that was a solid 12 out of 10 presentation. Very clear, very, even stuff, I learned some stuff. So that was amazing. Thank you. You just broke that down wonderfully. And Lauren and I were like texting, like, yes, like talking about the food and it's just so in line recovery. You just said everything. So, obviously within your time limit. So we did leave a little bit of time, but thank you. That was very well done. Beautiful presentation. Anyone have any questions? The cold rice one, I did not. That was one of my takeaways. I'm sure there's a million questions. And like you said, our bodies everything is different between person to person, but that was my just random question, are there any, and you kind of hit at the end saying there's no one size fits all for everyone, which I totally agree with. Would there be any just general supplements that people, like you can't out eat, you can't you can't just take a supplement is what I mean. Is there anything like omega-3s or glutathione or any on a standard basis, or is it a very individual thing?
I love that question, and I love that you said those two specific things because I use those all the time. My colleagues laugh that I think fish oil should be in the water. It's probably something that I use extremely commonly, and that's just because selection bias of who comes to me. My clients are inflamed, right? Yeah. And that's probably the biggest driver of chronic disease that we have is inflammation in all its forms, and fish oil has a lot of really great research behind it. And so it also is good for the gut. It feeds a lot of the microbes in the gut. So I do love fish oil, particularly for somebody who has joint issues, that go along with all this stuff. I think it can be something really great. I also use a lot of probiotics, but I think probiotics get really tricky because again, you want to make sure that you're getting the right one for your own gut scenario, and it's not just go grab one off the shelf at Whole Foods and know that it's one size fits all. So as far as gut health goes, there's not much that I feel like, oh, everybody needs. I will say this is one of my big things for sure. Julie and anybody else who waved their hand who doesn't have a gallbladder, if you are not taking bile salts with your meals, you need to get that because it will change your life. You're basically replacing your bile. When you don't have a gallbladder, you just have a drip of bile that goes into your intestines all the time, which first of all can be irritating, but second of all means you can't recruit bile when you go eat a bunch of avocado, right? So taking bile salts with your meal, frequently it's actually called ox bile, will change your life. And doctors never tell anybody that.
Yeah, my husband started taking that. He doesn't have a gallbladder either.
Oh, wow.
Um,
He's the guy, huh?
that guy. After yeah, everyone has a different situation,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I was gonna, yeah, that was. I was gonna have another question. Yeah, fish oil is a good one. Everyone's just giving you praise. I'm seeing if there's any other questions. Um,
Yeah, cold rice. Who knew?
another,
You can
so
heat it back
oh,
up.
that was my. With can you reheat the
Yeah,
rice so it keeps?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Yeah,
you
all
just
you have to
have
do
to.
is make it cold. White potatoes, white rice. It just has to be refrigerated until it's cold, and then you can heat it right back up. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. We have a whole pot of cold mashed potatoes with butter in the
Mhm.
garage because there was no room
Perfect.
in
Now
the.
it's going to be resistant starch when you heat it up. Yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful. Seed pro. Okay, your thoughts about seed probiotic?
Yeah, I've
Bliss.
planted seed a little bit, and it's a good product actually. I mean, they have a great marketing machine behind them as well, but it's a good product, and it has a really nice blend of a variety of different types of bacteria in there that can be just a very nice basic probiotic. I think you just have to listen to your body if it likes it or not. There's even more complicated situations out there of people who have issues with histamine, and some strains of bacteria are not going to work for them. So everybody's going to be a little bit different. But if you feel good taking it, I think seed is a lovely product. Yeah. And prebiotics, Denise, that's a really great question. So those resistant starches that we were just talking about, prebiotic, by the way, what is that? That means something that feeds the good bacteria specifically, right? So not a probiotic, which is taking it in a supplementary form, a bacteria, but a food for your bacteria. Some of those resistant starches that I talked about, those are good prebiotics. There are also prebiotic supplements out there. People use inulin. There's a variety of different fibers that can be used. I think, again, your body's going to tell you if it doesn't like that. And I would always just start really low and slow if anybody is using a prebiotic supplement to make sure that your gut is okay with it. Liz, yeah, that my business, just like VFit, even before the pandemic, was entirely virtual. We work virtually only with clients all over the world, as a matter of fact. And so we don't put our hands on anybody, and so people tend to not want to have to get in a car and drive to go to an appointment somewhere. So yes, thank you for asking. We do. We work with people all over.
Any other questions? Here's your chance. And yeah, this goes great in line too with getting more. I know this is something we're all intrigued with, and that's that whole longevity piece of life. Like, I don't want to just put days on my calendar. I want those days to feel good and live and have life and be able. There's so much we can do when we get to the signals from our body and reach out to people that understand the body as a whole. And like you said, not to knock doctors at all. They have a place, and we've got doctors on our VFit team that give us other information. But I do think looking at the body from a holistic point of view is just entirely makes sense, because that's how your body works. It doesn't work in compartmentalized areas. And a good doctor will know that too. Like, it crosses, right? They cross the lines. And so yes, increase health span, not lifespan. Yeah,
That's
that is
exactly.
good, Raylene.
Arlene, your question, yeah, Arlene's asking if I work with DNA SNPs also. So, yeah, so I certainly do genetic testing with people. I think that, the long and short of it is there's a very small number of all of the genes that we have that we actually know enough about to be able to say that it's worth looking at them and understanding what they tell us. But yeah, there are ways that we can look at genetics and help us understand how the body might be predisposed to something. But I always am very careful to remind everybody that genetics are not your destiny. It is the life that you live and the choices that you make that ultimately decide which of your genes turn on and are active and which ones are not. And so even when sometimes people can have some really scary genes potentially in their genome, and that doesn't mean that you're gonna get whatever that thing is that might be linked to it. So that can be a part of the work that we do. Linda, can you tell us again what we're supposed to take if we don't have a gallbladder? I had mine out at age 28 after my second pregnancy 40 years ago. Yeah. So the overarching term is bile salts. But if you look on the bottle at Whole Foods, it's generally called ox bile, like the animal ox bile. I don't know that it still comes from oxen. I think it used to a long time ago. I think it's from pigs now. It's porcine. But you should know it is animal derived. It's the only way to get it, honestly. But taking a capsule of that with meals when you're eating animal protein and fat, which we should all be eating every time we eat, right? Can really make a huge difference for your tolerance for fat, your digestion, your elimination, nausea, loose stool, like all of it. It's pretty darn game changing. And I think once you start, you'll always want to have it with you.
Does it only come in liquid form or
No, it's capsules. It's
okay,
capsules.
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So you want to take it before the meal to help break down the act as the bile?
I think you could take it before the meal. You could take it mid-meal if you forget to take it before the meal. Yeah, you just want it with your meals. Yeah.
With your meals. Okay. So good. And then yeah, anyone else have any?
I would stop sharing, but I have no idea how to do it.
I think there might be a button. I just love that you can be in the presentation.
I know.
Like not just like a screen.
Yeah, it's
We
crazy.
learned something new. All right, going once, going twice, last chance for questions. But yeah, I think everyone got a ton out of this. This will be recorded. We'll get it in the on-demand library. I'll add it to my blog, or my I don't have a blog. Well, I think I do, but my podcast is what I mean. And get it out. This is just amazing stuff. And it can get complicated out there, right? There's so many people saying different things and coming to someone who's trusted and just so well spoken. And that was just fabulous. So thank you for your time. Thank you for
Thank
being
you. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Thanks for being interested in asking great questions and coming. I appreciate it.
yeah, I definitely get on her email list. If they go to your website, they can sign up for your email list, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I have another question. Sorry.
Yes.
I took myself off audio so you wouldn't hang up. I imagine it's different from everyone, but how long does it take to heal or get a healthy biome? Is it just depend? Is that the answer?
Yeah, I think it definitely depends. That's always a great. I love to waffle anytime I answer a question, but yes, it's definitely going to depend. But I mean, we see both clinically and research has shown, like I said, with people on keto, like you can change the composition of your microbiome within a couple of weeks for the better when you start choosing differently what you're putting into your gut. Now, that being said, if you also have a raging overgrowth of some sort of bacteria that just shouldn't be there, we're usually talking about 8 to 12 weeks of eradicating something that shouldn't be there if we're using herbs, which tend to be gentler on the beneficial microbiome than a prescription medication, usually. So, it can be a few months in the case of a really ragingly dysbiotic gut. It could be a few months to get everything back to where it should be. But that being said, along the way, people start to feel a whole lot better quickly.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Awesome. Well, perfect. Thank you all for joining us. I know it's always hard to pick a day and time that works, but these afternoons, at least for workshops, tend to try to hit both coasts and between work and sleep. And don't forget to sleep tonight, team. I'm super hooked on that right now, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's fun. We'll keep exploring these topics. And if there's something anyone wants to contribute any month or has an idea, or if you even just have, we between the trainer team and a lot of our members, like this team has just a wealth of knowledge and different gifts and skill sets. And so if there's something you're interested in more about, that you want to know more about, let me know. And if there's something you want to contribute that you feel you have a voice and a knowledge and a passion for, the VFit way. So I had a feeling Ella was going to come up here and talk about eating only protein and the steak diet, the carnivore. So no. All right, my beautiful friends. Thank you. I'm just smiling. That was just wonderful. And
thanks, everybody. Thank you, Rochelle.
Yeah. And also Lauren has her, just her nutrition series too, which kind of goes really in line with the food part, that on a general, like, active population person, getting into a lot of that same eating your carbs, fueling your body with the right food. And so she's going to talk more about timing of food and stuff like that. So this all really goes very well together. And please reach out to Ellen if you would like to learn more. Last one, the food pyramid.
Liz, it is such a loaded question and so hard to answer. I think in these strongly politicized times, there is good research showing that increased red meat intake can be linked to disease states, including colon cancer and things like that. Does that mean you should never eat red meat? No. But I don't know how strongly we want to be telling people that they should be prioritizing that over perhaps some of the other less saturated fat containing types of foods. There's other issues with cancer-causing compounds that are produced when you cook red meat and things like that. But also, what really bugged me was things like they removed saying things about the alcohol restrictions, and so yeah, there's issues. I think the good news is I don't think most of us were choosing what we ate for dinner by looking at the food pyramid to begin with, right? So it's unfortunate because it does end up driving, what kids eat in school and what gets covered by WIC and those types of things. But unfortunately, that's the politics side of it. Yeah.
Well, hopefully they'll get a little more fat in their food because, yeah, you look at how many grams of sugar are in a school breakfast, it's alarming.
Yeah.
But yeah, seek good guidance, good answer. So, all right, go have a good dinner, or maybe you already had dinner. Go heat that rice up and cool it down. You probably want some protein. You already said some protein and veggies with it. I love that. That was like such a big takeaway. I really didn't know that. So, all right, it's hard to say goodbye when it's such a good topic. I'm going to do it right at 5:15. 45 minutes. Thank you so much, Ellen. That was wonderful.
All right, good night.
Bye.